Hello, welcome back to Planet Watch for April. Today we're discussing Aries and this new sign that's coming in with Mary Jane Staudenmann. Hi, Mary Jane.
Hello, Christy. Hello, all of you planet watchers. Good to be back with you.
I do love spring, and we are recording what is today, the 14th. I had to cheat and look at my computer. The
Uh-huh.
14th, and we've got the equinox coming up and the first signs of spring. I know you're not a big fan of spring.
Huh. Well, that's just cause I'm getting out of this period of Pisces that I really have trouble with. I'm a very strong Virgo person. Here's a killer phrase for anybody who doesn't can't stand Virgos. But anyway, I'm a very strong Virgo person, and all of this spring, end of winter, spring, bull, well, brouhaha
Thank you.
is just sitting right on my head. And it's given me, among other things, a horrible cold this end of spring, so end of winter. So I don't know, it's not my favorite time, but that's personal. I understand there's a huge energy that's going to be available to us. That's the good news, which is getting me over my cold, by the way.
That's great.
Right. So it's not for nothing. There's something for everybody in here. And that's the important part.
Oh, that's wonderful. Well, as you can see from watching the screen, I'm at home and I've got my dog rattling her tags and walking across the floor, and I just had some big army helicopter fly overhead. So hopefully, this will be the last of the distractions. So, yeah, let's get cracking into Aries and what's coming up.
Exactly, exactly. Well, let's talk about what this equinox represents after all. We go through this every half a year, but the spring one is particularly nice because it represents, in fact, the old thinking new year. The Celts still practice New Year on the 21st of March. The Zoroastrians still look at to this point as representing the New Year. Druid is representing the New Year as the 21st of March. It's the astrological New Year. It's 0 degrees in the zodiac that we're using in their 360 cycle. It's the 0 degree point. It's the cardinal point of the entire year. So it's important to us from a technical point of view, and also from a natural point of view. This is when nature takes off. This is literally the explosion of spring. Aries is an explosive sign. It's ruled by Mars. It's a cardinal sign that represents the spark, the beginning spark. So this is an idea for us in order to use this period as a takeoff period, so, where we can get our projects off the ground, literally, and coming out of the ground. So for that reason alone, it's a pretty exciting time. And
Yeah.
we have to represent this new year as such. It just works so logically in our bodies, in nature all around us. This is where things are starting and growing.
It makes so much sense to have this time of year as the new year because it is. It's a new year. Well, in the northern hemisphere, of course,
Right, right,
kind of
right.
the
We're living
northern
different things.
Pacific.
I can only talk about what I know. And obviously the people in South America are on another schedule. But I think certainly in the I just want to talk about the new year, this March and April and May, that have always been times of revolution, of beginning
Oh,
wars, walking off to war. You know, the fellows planted their crops and then they walked off to war, because this energy is such that this is a time to burn off, I guess, all this excess energy. Seems to be working right now, anyway, in the world we know right now. So it's always been a time of upheaval in any case, and again, beginning things, beginning projects. So yeah, we've got to use it a little. We'll hope a little more peacefully this time, but
So,
certainly the logic is there. It makes better sense to me than the 31st of December, which
right.
I don't know exactly when that how that got started. Probably with the Saturnalia that was going on in December. The end of December was the huge time of revelry. In any case, in Rome, various places around the world, and certainly here in Europe. So I kind of think that's where the habit of starting a new year, starting a new count, uh, began with that.
In the middle of winter, the darkest point of the year,
Mhm.
it just didn't make a lot of sense. But, that's where we are right now.
Well, right. The only logical thing in that is, and we talked about this actually at the time of the last solstice,
Right.
the only logical part of that is that the sun is beginning to make itself seen and known more at that time. This is when the sun is growing on our side of the world. And with that in mind, you can sort of argue for a new start, a new light. We can figure from that, I suppose. But in to my sense, this natural in quotation marks, natural new
Right.
year makes infinitely better sense and feels better, just feels more logical.
Yes. I mean, new life, new growth. Again, in the Northern Hemisphere, I
Right.
know. But, new life, new growth. I found out a pretty interesting fact that I thought was cool is that the things that are growing first in the spring, those are what our body needs after a long period of darkness. Like dandelions, for example. Dandelions
That's
grow in the
true.
first thing of spring, and dandelion tincture, root, dandelion salads, and greens. That is exactly what our body needs to just kind of restart
To
things.
to wake up. Exactly,
Right.
exactly. There's such a beautiful logic. If we
Absolutely.
pay attention to what's growing, pay attention to seasonal foods, uh, it's all there for us.
Right, exactly. Exactly. It's almost as though it was planned.
Yeah, virtually.
So we've got springtime, men's hearts turn to fancy, men's hearts turn to war, it sounds like. That's
Mhm.
something that's been on my mind a lot is what's going on in Ukraine. And astrologically, does it make any sense right now? Is this even, or is it just like out of nowhere?
Oh, it's certainly not out of nowhere. We've been looking at the really nasty square, difficult square between Saturn and Uranus. This is an invitation
Mhm.
to warlike fighting over territory, fighting over flower
Toys.
pots. It doesn't have to be much earth
Right.
to get somebody involved with it. But finally fighting over who wants what. And now the very interesting thing is going on right now, and that's very important in Aries, ruled by Mars. Mars is coming in to the space that uh, Saturn has been occupying all this time. Mars is moving into that space and recreating the square to Uranus. This is an extremely explosive square, an extremely explosive conflict, and I think it's uh, under this weight that, in fact, this war has been declared now. This is the only astrological sense I can make out of this scene. And the good news is that Mars moves fast. Obviously, this whole situation showed up so quickly that no one has been able to figure out exactly where it's coming from. But it's also moving out fast, and we'll talk about that in a minute. So all is not lost. Certainly, I think this is going to be not a world war that takes time, but it's going to be a huge a huge cataclysm, a huge quick, hard, noisy decision that's going to finally be argued by the rest of the world, that's coming down and saying we can't
Effort.
have this anymore. This is not
Right.
21st century thinking. And as we'll see a little later, I want to point out some dates where there's room for the weight of the world, the public opinion in the rest of the entire world will finally weigh in and finally make some sense out of this apparent chaos. But
Right.
that's really all I can tell you from an astrological point of view without seeing the charts of the nations involved, the charts of Vladimir Putin. I kind of am interested personally in that one, and I might have some more comments on that a little later. But certainly we have to get down to some very specific places and the triggers that have set off this particular conflict.
Right, right. Does it look as though the US could get involved?
No,
Okay, good.
no, frankly not. Frankly not. This seems to be something that we will be supporting with the rest of the world. I'm sitting here and we hear nightly, I'm sitting here in the middle of Europe, and nightly we hear comments coming from the Secretary General of the UN, comments coming from the NATO countries, comments coming from all of the countries surrounding the Ukraine, Poland, Hungary. They're doing their best, and they're making noises as though they're going to stay very interested in keeping an eye on what's going on in Ukraine and not allowing this war to
Explode.
exceed its current limits. Other countries, Crimea, Moldavia, other Finland, other places that have been sort of eyeballed by the USSR, I wanted to say by Russia all this time, are drawing in arms. They're getting their armies ready. They're ready to defend themselves against any overriding conflict.
Right.
So yeah, we're just going to have to count on the world opinion
Right.
finally. And I think in this day of what we're doing right now, of massive communication, of instant communication,
Right.
there will be a way for to contain this horrible event into the limits that it's showing right now.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Now, speaking of the world stage, I remember maybe 3, 4 weeks ago, Irish fishermen in the North Sea saying that they're not going to halt their fishing just because Russia wanted to have war games and practices in the waters, and just standing up to the Russian Navy.
Quite right.
Yeah.
Quite right. And we've heard this all over. We've heard reports coming in. Well, the U.S. is wanting to supply fighter
Right,
planes,
right. Fighter jets.
airplanes to Poland that are sitting on the border, ready to pounce on you in the Ukraine, ready to help out. They're having to change the paint job on the planes, which I found pretty interesting. But whatever works. Meanwhile, arms are coming in from all sorts of different sources.
Hmm.
So these people first of all feel as though they're not alone, and that's always important in a besieged country, to know that they're surrounded, literally surrounded by helping hands.
Right.
And that, I think, is going to be it's going to be important, even astrologically. I'll have a few maybe words on that, but just to know that they're not alone, and that in fact they can count on some outside support in their fight in this horrible defense they're having to put on, and they're doing a pretty fine job, I must say.
I
If
have
the
to say, I'm impressed with the Ukrainian people.
Yes, yes, it's huge, and the groundswell is going to continue to grow. Uh, I think it's going to be the turning point is going to actually show up pretty soon.
Wonderful. Okay, so on a more personal global level, what can we expect in Aries?
Well, there are some basic themes that we have to cover. First of all, we talked quite a while ago about the Venus-Mars conjunction. It's
Right.
still very strong. It's still very strong the planets are together now in Aquarius. they're still making this square to Uranus that's down in Taurus, but they're going away. But the interesting part, and it's still interesting to me and to all of us, I think, is that these planets are at a very awkward 45 half square 45-degree angle to the sun, and Venus is going to continue this 45-degree angle to the sun until the end of April. We're not getting out of this position. It's always
Right,
a
right, right.
time of uh, misunderstanding, incomprehension on all kinds of levels, but on an emotional level as well. Venus feels unloved and unheard. This is giving, with Mars here in conjunction, this is Putin saying all kinds of ridiculous things about how no one is taking him seriously. And it's quite, it becomes laughably clear, in fact, and kind of silly to think about. But I think this is part of his thinking. It's part of all of our thinking. In fact, it's a sort of a short circuit time in these otherwise hot relationships. Venus and Mars are supposed to be hand in hand and growing and looking toward new projects and so on.
Right.
But as it is, they're just not finding the energy, the proper motor to get things going in a positive way. So far, and for the next week or so, it's staying very negative in this square to Uranus. There's a lot of excitation, but nowhere to direct it. And this is the dangerous part of what's going on in these next few days. This is particularly true as we're coming into Aries, the 20th of March already. This half square is very active. And as I say, in the week that's coming up, it's going to be very awkward. Venus is going to be changing signs. Venus will be moving, it's moving very fast, and will be changing signs, will be moving into Pisces on the 5th of April. But the same problem exists. As I said, this semi-square is still active all the way through until the end of the month. And so we're not, it's changing its attitude with Mars somehow. And this is going to be interesting as Venus moves into Pisces and leaves Mars gently behind. The 13th of April is a time when we can see the conflict happening between uh, Aquarius and Pisces. Venus moving into Aquarius, literally into the house of Mars, is slowly but surely growing closer to the sun and will be leaving behind this semi-square. She's going to slowly but surely, especially in further along in May, is going to slowly but surely come out of this anger mode or this incomprehension mode and leave Pisces behind, leave poor Mars in Pisces behind. So this represents a time when Venus, I think, will be active in changing some people's thinking. Finally, will move slowly but surely into a space around the 12th of April. I'm thinking already on the 12th of April and maybe the weekend ahead of time, we're going to see such a lot of people on the streets, uh, worldwide demonstrations and political actions as well against the ongoing war in Ukraine. This is one period, and the other period of what I consider a new consensus is on the 18th of April, a little bit later, where the moon is accompanying a very nice lineup of planets that's going to allow public opinion to be finally heard and taken seriously. The moon is going through Scorpio on the 18th of um, of April, and is setting off this. The moon represents the movement of the masses. The moon is our everyday down home Joe Blow in the cafe, where finally he's saying, we've seen enough. This cannot happen anymore. And the 18th of April, I think, is going to be a watershed uh, weekend in the worldwide response to this war going on. We're already, though, on the weekend of the 9th and 10th of April. We're going to see heavy duty support coming into Ukraine. And I'm thinking this is going to be the first of at least two worldwide movements that are just not allowing this war to go on.
Mm.
So all is not lost. All is not lost. I'm thinking, though, that in the meantime and through the end of March and this first part of April, it's going to be a very difficult time in relationships on all levels. And as these two planets change signs, there's going to be an attitude of freedom and new projects, new innovation, is having to fight it out with the other side that represents dependency, responsibility, keeping old promises, that is just holding back from getting ahead or changing one's direction. So this can be lived out on all kinds of levels. We're talking about marriages. We're talking about parents and children. We're talking about between governments, in your communities. It's this whole attitude of spring being held back by winter, quite literally, in fact, as it turns out.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to be seeing this quite a lot through the first half, let's say, of April. But then it won't be before the 2nd of May when Venus enters into Aries finally and begins to embrace the new, embrace new possibilities. And as I said, is coming closer and closer to the sun finally, and will finally be changing this attitude of total incomprehension. And there we can talk about forming new desires, new goals, fixing new projects in a much more logical and effective manner.
Mm-hmm.
I talked about Mars that's taking the place, and this is happening until the 30th of April as well. Mars that is literally taking the place that Jupiter was occupying in making this square to Uranus. So, in fact, through at least the first part of April, it's going to be bombs going off a lot, a lot. And we won't see much change in that until the weekend of the 10th, 12th, and again on the 18th.
Mm-hmm.
Where I think finally, I don't know, I'm always rather optimistic, but I'm thinking that these 2 weekends are going to represent times when the first of all, the boycotts and the sanctions placed on Russia are going to finally make sense to local people
The
there,
people in Russia.
and right,
Yeah, they're
and
already
finally they'll
starting to.
begin to see results of worldwide uh, denunciation.
Right, 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 right. Yeah, they're already starting to feel the pinch, as it were.
I think so. I think so. And sitting here in Europe. We're hearing constantly that not only uh, not only Germany but also Letony. What is that in England?
Lithuania.
I can't. Anyway, the
Lithuania.
Estonian countries up there
Yeah.
are already saying, let's turn off the valve to Russian gas. We'll just do without. They're they're getting more and more excited about just turning off, boycotting completely the gas and oil uh, being piped into their countries.
Right.
This is what it's going to take. France is taking the same position. France is less dependent on Russian oil and gas than is Germany, for instance, and the northern countries. But they're saying we'll just do without. We'll go look somewhere else, and it's going to take that. But I think it's finally beginning to show up,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and
I
time will
know
tell
that
about this.
sales of Russian vodka have taken a hit.
Right? That's
Right,
not unimportant.
right, right. And one brand of vodka has tried to rebrand itself. So, at least here in the United States.
Fantastic. Fantastic. I haven't checked our liquor supplies recently, but I assume there's a lot of that going on. There was one interesting turn of events in the very famous music festival, classical music festival that's held every year in Verbier.
Yeah.
The director of the chef of the orchestra is a Russian who is apparently quite close to Putin, and he's been fired. He's just not coming back this year.
Okay.
And in a lot of key places in European culture, important Russians have been turned away.
Yeah.
So this is again maybe a less commercial approach, but it's certainly a sign of sanctions, and will finally ultimately be important to the heads of the Russian government.
I think so. I mean, it's hard to ignore when the whole world is saying stop. This is not making sense. We don't want this, any of this.
True enough, true enough. Although, uh, as an astrologer, I'm supposed to say rather neutral, but I don't think Vladimir Putin is mentally healthy at present,
Well,
and
I heard that.
apparently not even physically healthy. There are some interesting rumors around that he's not physically healthy, which can make him into a very dangerous animal if he feels he has nothing to lose.
True.
I'm a little bit afraid of this thinking, but meanwhile, it's difficult at that rate to reason with him also. I think the pressure is going to have to come from people around him, more and more closely around him.
That's
And this may finally make the difference. We have to hope so.
right, right. Yes, I had heard some of those ideas as well, but it's difficult to speculate, and it's certainly not something we want to bank on.
No,
I don't
no,
care
we
where it is.
don't.
I don't.
I don't think anyone has that leisure time to sit back and wait for him to die or wait for him to get healthy again. I think this is not on the cards,
Well, and I
not in the
think
stars.
whoever it is, I do not wish ill on anyone. And
No,
I hate to wish ill. That said, I heard the inclinations, and I'm keeping an eye on that.
for sure, for sure, it's
Mhm.
going to be important. I think it's an important element.
Right.
I'm as soon as I leave you, I'm going to have a closer up look at the birth chart of Mr. Putin and see what we can pull out. I don't know. I'll be in touch.
Well, that would be very helpful. And in today's information age, we can find the birth chart of anybody.
Oh yeah. Oh, for sure. Oh, that's the easy part. Just finding the time or the inclination to get involved on that level is more important. Oh, with these with I'm just backpedaling a little bit, talking about uh, this beginning part of April that looks very complicated for our human relations.
Yeah.
There are some dates that I failed to mention, but they are pretty important as the moon is getting involved in this close conjunction and with the difficulties that this conjunction is creating.
Yeah.
The first one is on the 21st, right away after the equinox, where the moon is square to Venus and Mars. This is always awkward, just as far as the viscerally being close to each other. It's not easy, and it's a very good date to be just keeping your mouth shut and letting arguments kind of slide over your head. Venus will be in conjunction with these two planets on the 28th of March. Venus will, or the moon will be square to these planets on the 4th of April, and the moon will be opposite Venus and Mars on the 12th of April. Now, these are excellent days to just let it slide. Don't go looking for fleas, as we like to say, picking around looking for the little things that irritate. There'll be enough irritation in the sky anyhow. And these are very good dates to just let things slide. Wait till tomorrow. If you've got something you absolutely have to argue out, wait till tomorrow. Wait till the next day. And then you can bring up any griefs that you might have with your partner or business associate.
And this is precisely why I value these conversations.
Hmm,
To know ahead of time when to hold them and when to fold them.
that's exactly what it's all about, as close as I can tell. At least this can be the most useful on a day-to-day level, is just know when it's important to speak up and know when it's totally useless or, in fact, venomous to get involved.
Right, right. When to pick your battles. So this is all very good. Anything else we need to know in going into Aries?
No, those I think are going to be the hot
Important.
spots in
Mm-hmm.
an otherwise the transits of the sun going through Aries are actually pretty low key, pretty quiet on their own. The only important date that I can imagine is as again on the 18th of April, when the sun will be coming square to Pluto. But again, it's in an alignment with other planets that are much gentler, that are much more positive and should be much more helpful at the same time, and with the position of the moon on the same day, that seems to weigh in on the side of public opinion, weighing in on the side of the importance and the weight of the voice of the people, the voice of the people in the world, and the voice of outside governments. So this is why I'm thinking it's going to be, at least as far as the sun is concerned, a fairly quiet month. A lot of other stuff going on that's going to keep us busy, but we'll count heavily, in fact, on these actions of Venus and Mars. Mars, particularly, Mars is the planet of war.
It
Huh?
is. Yes. Yeah, literally.
So, literally, and so this all makes actually pretty good sense. What I find kind of interesting, though, is that in the square from Mars to Uranus, okay, it looks very active, but I'm thinking this is going to keep us out of a nuclear threat.
That
It
is
just,
on everyone's mind.
yes, for sure, and it's correct. But as we see, Mars is going to move away from this square, in the next few days. And I think all the saber rattling will finally kind of peter out, especially after Mars changes signs on the 15th of April and will be moving into Pisces. Mars in Pisces is just, not interested in nuclear warfare. So it's now or never. And I think with the weight of the world on its shoulders, this Mars is not going to have the opportunity, first of all, to flex his muscles in that particular way.
Hmm. Okay, good to know. Good to know. All right. Well, yes, go ahead.
Oh, I just at the same time, the square from Mars to Uranus does not rule out the possibility of the nuclear plants that are numerous in Ukraine being bomb sites. And this is something the experts are kind of weighing in. that this does not represent otherwise a nuclear threat. That it's a nasty business because it puts a veto on electricity, on local, all kinds of local electrical necessities.
Right.
But that in and of
Also,
itself, it's not particularly scary, otherwise scary.
my concern with that would be contamination and leaks of nuclear materials.
Uh-huh. Well, apparently, at least what the experts are telling us right now, it's it doesn't look as though it's supposed to be that possible, in fact, to come up with the same level of contamination that one could imagine otherwise.
Right.
So, I'm no expert there, but in any case, that danger too seems to be petering out.
Good.
And
Good to know.
so slowly but surely, we're getting past this feverish period.
Right, 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 right. Good. Yeah, that has been my top concern in coming to this morning is, well, for me, it's the morning, but talking about the possibilities of what's going on and
Mm.
possible expansion of it, other countries getting involved, and just when is it going to end? That kind of thing. It sounds like not anytime soon, but that.
Not anytime soon, but we're not talking years. I don't even think we're talking months. I
Okay,
think we're talking weeks,
good.
2 or 3 months would be my semi-educated guess. But that's, we're going to have to do some very heavy praying and some very heavy positive thinking, and especially getting the worldwide governments off their ass and ready to respond
Yeah, yeah. Well,
without always thinking about, a lot of the talk here is, well, yes, but if we turn off the all the sources of gas and oil, well, how are we going to keep our industries up? How are we going to keep our cars filled? Bite the bullet. It's
absolutely.
there's never been a conflict like this without some sort of sacrifice being called for. And so, we drive a little bit less or turn to electric cars a little more, or there are a lot of other ways to, luckily, springs upon us, and we don't have to count so much on fuel for heating,
Mm-hmm.
but at least not on this side of the world.
During,
So yeah, so things are going to ease up, but finally it's going to be our our choice as human beings, as citizens of this world, to say, well, I'll do my bit to help turn off help turn off the lights in Russia.
right. And then during many other wars, Americans and all people all over the world made great sacrifices, growing their own
Of
food.
course.
And,
We can't act like spoiled children now that we're
no,
being called upon to
right,
make certain sacrifices and to
right.
ease up on the extreme comfort that in fact we've known for all these many years.
Yes, absolutely. Okay. Well, very, very good indeed. I
Take in the spring energy.
uh, I would be remiss if we did not mention the healing circle we have coming up on Sunday, the 20th, the day of the equinox,
Right,
right?
right. And it'll be a very good time to think about healing existing dissensions on all levels. Well,
I think so too, right? And we can all contribute to healing of each other and of the world. So we'll be focusing, I want to focus a bit on Ukraine while we're at it, as well as all of the things that we have going on individually and collectively. That will be on Facebook Live on the Radiate Wellness LLC business page at noontime central on Sunday, March the 20th, and you'll have to do the math to figure out what time zone that's going to be for everybody else. Come to find out that not all of the world is on daylight savings time right now.
No, so far, there, I gotta say, leave it to the Americans to hold on to their own camp.
The individuals. So,
Right.
so wherever you're watching, you'll have to do the math to figure out what time it's going to be on Sunday at noon Central U.S. time. So until then, we will be sharing the dates here in the show notes. So take a look at some important dates to figure out when to hold them, when to fold them, when to shut up, and when to talk.
That's about it. So all year long, it's pretty good advice.
It's pretty good advice, no matter who you are. And we'll see everyone again in Taurus.
Indeed.
All right, ciao.
So long.